Hotel Lima Alpha.
In the small town where I grew up, a river cuts through just outside the city limits. There are places where the water is shallow enough to wade across, and others that could easily sweep the unwary off their feet. Of course, there are bridges that span sections of the water, some of them older structures left to rot away after the construction of sturdier modern bridges built large enough for cars. These rickety, old crossings, with their alarming sounds and unsteady feel, often come with tales of the horrors they've witnessed. One of the many tales I remember from my childhood involves such a structure, more than a few missing children, and a boogeyman who drove an ice cream truck. But that, I fear, is a story for another day. My name is Alice, and I'm glad you could join me. Today, we're going to explore a few tales that are whispered about bridges in other hometowns. Screaming Bridge in Arlington, Texas. There are a few different tales about the Screaming Bridge, so I'll touch on some of them. It might get a little confusing, and I do apologize for that. I was a bit confused myself. One telling states that in 1961, 6 teenage girls were joyriding in the dark and didn't see that the bridge was out, leading to the loss of 3 lives and severe injuries to the survivors. Unbeknownst to the girls, the bridge had been subject of arson. At first, the arsonists were believed to be, quote, hobos or young vandals. A few days later, 4 schoolboys were arrested for burning down the bridge, which, in their confession, they proclaimed was an act of racism. At trial, they were declared to be, quote, good boys who pulled a prank and deserved a second chance. And in the end, there was no prison time served. We should also note that this bridge was commonly called Death Crossing and had been burned down and replaced only 2 years prior. Wooden barricades were also placed on the sides of the bridge, but they seem to have gone missing before the incident and were never found, despite rewards being offered for their return. The bridge wasn't rebuilt, but dozed over and replaced with drainage tunnels and covered with asphalt up to the level of the original span. In 1994, another incident occurred involving a vehicle trying to outrun a train and failing to do so. This resulted in 2 deaths and the road being permanently closed to all traffic. Reports of disembodied screams and screeching metal at this location persisted until it was no longer accessible to the public. At this point is where it gets a little murky. The story of the Screaming Bridge and its ghosts seem to move and merge with the stories surrounding another bridge further down the same river that lies at the end of an abandoned road. There are stories that there was a collision on this second bridge in the 70s involving 2 cars on the 1-lane crossing. Both cars were going too fast, there was a fiery crash, and no survivors. This bridge is closed and barricaded these days, and you can't drive up to it anymore. However, it still sees a bit of foot traffic from those who want to, quote, hear the screams of those who met their end on the Screaming Bridge. There have been reports of lights, glowing text in the river, unexplained fog, and strange feelings. Teens have been turned away from the location by unknown men who tell them that they can't be there. There have also been reports of hooded figures performing black masses and other rituals. I guess the satanic panic never died out in Texas. Avon Bridge, Avon, Indiana. Avon is a town of about 18,000 people that's well known for its lovely parks and family-friendly atmosphere. It's the kind of place where families live for generations because they can't imagine living anywhere else. In 1906, a bridge was built for the Big 4 Railroad over a creek off County Road 625. This bridge is sturdy and imposing and at the time of this recording is still standing and is still giving eerie vibes to locals and strangers alike. Local legends tell us that numerous deaths occurred in relation to this bridge. During the construction of the bridge, it's said that one of the workmen fell into the concrete, effectively burying him alive. Due to the tight construction schedule and the expense of extracting the body and repouring the cement, he was just left there. According to the plaque on the bridge, 4 men fell from the bridge during its construction, meeting their end in the creek. Sometimes splashes and thuds are heard where they fell, but the water is always still and peaceful. Perhaps the saddest story of all relating to this bridge is that of a young mother and her baby. The child had taken ill, and the mother needed to get them to the doctor. Her only option was to go on foot, and the only route was across the bridge. The bridge was wet, and she slipped, falling to the creek bottom with her child. To this day, people hear the mother's agonized wails, and some claim to have heard a baby crying. Many locals lay on the horn when they drive under the bridge in an effort to muffle the screams. Goldbrook Covered Bridge, Stowe, Vermont. This bridge was built in 1844 and looks very much like many other 19th century covered bridges built over streams and creeks in the northeastern part of the United States. This 50-foot pine bridge was where a young woman named Emily was to meet the young man she loved. That night that they had planned to meet, they were going to run away together and elope. Sadly, the young man never showed up, and the heartbreak was just more than Emily could bear. She took matters into her own hands and was found suspended from the rafters of the bridge the following morning. Locals subsequently began referring to the structure as Emily's Bridge. Sightings of Emily lurking around the bridge have been reported since, but not the sweet, sorrowful Emily you'd imagine when hearing her story. This Emily is the embodiment of rage and wrath, with long, sharp nails that she has no qualms with using to express her anger. She's been said to slash passing cars, leaving long scratches in their paint. Pedestrians don't fare any better either. Emily's fury can be seen in the scratch marks left on the backs of those who cross the bridge on foot. To this day, there are still regular sightings of Emily and reports of feeling her tortured presence. While I can't substantiate any of these stories myself, they've been around long enough that many locals accept them as fact. There is some controversy about the facts of these stories, and given their age, they've gained a bit of urban legend status. As with many urban legends, there's always some gray area, so I'll let you be the judge. But if you're ever near any of these bridges, or if there's something creepy about your hometown, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Until next time, my friends, put fresh batteries in your flashlight, watch your step, and good night, whatever you are.